shall he live. And whoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. I know that my Redeemer lives, and that he shall stand at the latter day upon the earth. And though this body be destroyed, yet shall I see God, whom I shall see for myself, and mine eyes shall behold, and not as a stranger. For none of us liveth to himself, and no man dieth to himself. If we live, and if we die unto the Lord. For none of us liveth to himself, and no man dieth to himself. For if we live unto the Lord, and we die unto the Lord. Whether we live, therefore, or die, we are the Lord's. Blessed are the dead who die in the Lord. Even so saith the Spirit, for they rest from their labors.
The Lord be with you. Let us pray. O God, whose mercies cannot your saints, through Jesus Christ our Lord, who lives and reigns with you and the Holy Spirit, one God forever. Amen.
And I was always very thankful that I got to walk in with my grandmother. And I was always very thankful that I got to walk in with my grandmother. And as soon as we sat down, Sunday school would start. My grandfather always began by asking if anybody had been in his church before. My grandmother and I raised our hands and almost no one else did. And then my grandfather would poll the congregation. And we'd quickly find out that the church was full of people from all over the country, of all different backgrounds and beliefs. And my grandfather would address the most diverse Sunday school class ever assembled. Again. Before he delivered his Bible lesson, my grandfather talked about his week. If he monitored an election, he'd talk about it. If he stopped a conflict, he'd talk about it. If he eliminated a disease from a village or a country, he would talk about it. When my brother Jeremy died, he announced that news in Sunday school. In fact, I remember that my brother died on a Sunday because it was the only time my grandfather was ever late to teach. My grandfather won the Nobel Peace Prize. The Sunday school class learned first. At the end of his Nobel Peace Prize lecture, he stated the most serious and universal problem on our planet is the growing chasm between the richest and poorest people on Earth. For the next 2 decades, as the problem compounded, he returned to this theme with stories from the Bible and stories from today of the richest people in the world using their enormous wealth to buy a nation's poverty. Many of the people that my grandparents helped lived on less than $1 a day. My grandfather spent the entire time I've known him helping those in need. He built houses for people who needed homes. He eliminated diseases in forgotten places. He waged peace anywhere in the world. Wherever he saw a chance, he loved people. And whenever he told these stories in Sunday school, he always said he did it for one simple reason. He worshiped the Prince of Peace, and he commanded it. The bedrock of my grandfather's faith comes from the Apostle Paul's letter to the Romans, chapter 8, 1 through 18, 38 and 39. Condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus, because Jesus was powerless to do, and that it was weakened by the sinful nature, God did by sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful man to be a sin offering. And so he condemned sin and sinful man in order that the righteous requirements of the law might be fully met in us, who do not live according to the sinful nature, but according to the Spirit. Those who live according to the sinful nature have their minds set on what that nature desires. But those who live in accordance with the Spirit have their minds set on what the Spirit desires. The mind of sinful man is death, but the mind controlled by the Spirit is life and peace. The sinful mind is hostile to God. It does not submit to God's law, nor can it do so. Those controlled by the sinful nature cannot please God. You, however, are controlled not by the sinful nature, but by the Spirit, if the Spirit of God lives in you. And if anyone does not have the Spirit of Christ, he does not belong to Christ. But if Christ is in you, your body is dead because of sin. Yet your spirit is alive because of righteousness. And if the Spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead is living in you, he who raised Christ from the dead will also give life to your mortal bodies through his Spirit, who lives in you. Therefore, brothers, we have an obligation. But it is not to the sinful nature to live according to it. For if you live according to the sinful nature, you will die.
But for the many wonderful years that followed, friendship bonded us as no two presidents since John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. It is said that President Adams' last words were, "Thomas Jefferson still survives." Now, it's a long way between Grand Rapids, Michigan, and Plains, Georgia. But distances have a way of vanishing when measured in values rather than miles. And it was because of our shared values that Jimmy and I respected each other as adversaries, even before we cherished one another as dear friends. Now, this is not to say that Jimmy never got under my skin. But has there ever been a group of politicians that didn't do that to one another? During our 1976 contest, Jimmy knew my political vulnerabilities, and he successfully pointed them out. Now, I didn't like it, but little could I know that the outcome of that 1976 election would bring about one of my deepest and most enduring friendships. In the summer of 1981, the two of us found ourselves together again, this time aboard Air Force One, bound for the funeral of the great peacemaker Anwar Sadat. There's an old line to the effect that two presidents in a room is one too many. Frankly, I wondered how awkward that long flight might be to Cairo, and it was a long flight, but the return trip was not nearly long enough, for it was somewhere over the Atlantic that Jimmy and I forged a friendship that transcends politics. We immediately decided to exercise one of the privileges of a former president, forgetting that either one of us had ever said any harsh words about the other one in the heat of battle. Then we got on to much more enjoyable subjects, discussing our families, our faith, and sharing our experiences in discovering that there is indeed life after the White House. We commiserated over the high cost of building presidential libraries, and the even more regrettable fact that most of that fundraising for these otherwise admirable institutions fell to us personally. On the spot, we agreed to participate in programs at each other's library, beginning with a series of conferences on arms control. And if that wasn't newsworthy enough, we told reporters on the plane that a lasting Middle East peace would require the United States to make tough decisions, like confronting the Palestinian issue directly, thereby building on the work to which President Sadat had literally given his life. It was the first time, but by no means the last time, that our unlikely partnership ruffled feathers in the Washington establishment. Now, honesty and truth-telling were synonymous with the name Jimmy Carter. Yeah. Those traits were instilled in him by his loving parents, Lillian and Earl Carter, and the strength of his honesty was reinforced by his upbringing in the rural South, poised on the brink of social transformation. He displayed that honesty throughout his life as a naval officer, state legislator, governor, president, and world leader. For Jimmy Carter, honesty was an aspirational goal. It was part of his very soul. Now, I think Jimmy wrote more books than any former president. Once asked if he really enjoyed writing, he replied with that familiar twinkle in his eye, "It beats picking cotton." But I think he enjoyed writing for another reason. As an author, he was under no pressure to tailor his opinions to some political constituency or potential contributor. Now, both of us had experienced the harsh reality that defeat at the polls can be painful, but we also came to know a more important consequence. Political defeat and writing can also be liberating. If it frees you to discuss topics that aren't necessarily consistent with short-term political popularity. Now, Jimmy learned early on that it was not enough merely to bear witness in a pew on a Sunday morning. Inspired by his faith, he pursued brotherhood across boundaries of nationhood, across boundaries of tradition, across boundaries of caste. In America's urban neighborhoods and in rural villages around the world, he reminded us that Christ had been a carpenter. And in third world villages, he successfully campaigned not for votes, but for the eradication of children. Like Jimmy, Rosalind was and is a symbol of compassion. Like no other First Lady in our history, Rosalind Carter is indeed a true citizen of the world. And she became a beloved friend to my wife Betty and me and to all the Ford family. While the Carter and Ford men were decidedly mixed record when it came to lobbying Congress, Rosalind and Betty were unbeatable in their advocacy for millions of people whom they brought out of the shadows. Now is a time to say goodbye. Our grief comforted with the joy and the thanksgiving of knowing this man, this beloved man, this very special man. He was given the gift of years, and the American people and the people of the world will be forever blessed by his decades of good works. Jimmy Carter's legacy of peace and compassion will remain unique as it is timeless. The entire Ford family, we extend our love to you, and we add our prayers to the prayers of tens of millions of people around the world. May God bless and watch over this good man. May he grant peace to the Carter family as they say goodbye to a man whose life was lived to the fullest, with a faith demonstrated in countless good works, with a mission richly fulfilled, and a soul rewarded with everlasting life. As for myself, Jimmy, I'm looking forward to our reunion. We have much to catch up on. Thank you, Mr. President. Welcome home, old friend.
My father wrote this in 2015, and clearly he edited it a couple times since then, but here we go. Today we join in sadness to honor our dear friend, President Carter, for his extraordinary years of principled,
and decent leadership, and his courageous commitment to civil rights and human rights. I remember the emergence of Jimmy Carter on the national stage. In particular, his 1971 inaugural address. For the first time, a Georgia governor called for a commitment to the traditions of Martin Luther King Jr. and for the decency that his leadership stood for over his lifetime. I was surprised when then candidate Carter asked me to join him as his running mate in 1976. He amazed me then, as he has every year since, being their country. With President Carter's orders, the boat people were picked up by our great Navy from their flimsy boats, which were capsizing, and taken to safety. Most became good American citizens working for a healthy and prosperous nation. Joan loved her time as a second lady. And we have Jimmy and Rosalind to thank for helping her champion the public arts and for just being so kind to her. These were good years for Joan and I. President Carter and I became very close friends. We often spent hours together throughout the day. We were working on real problems, not wasting time. The personal relationship we established while in office continued throughout our life. Carter was far-sighted. He put aside his short-term political interests to tackle challenges that demanded sacrifice, to protect our kids and grandkids from future harm. Very few people in the 1970s had heard the term climate change. Yet Carter put his presidency on the line to pass laws to conserve energy, deregulate new oil and gas prices, and invest in clean, renewable alternatives to fossil fuels. It wasn't a perfect program, but thanks to President Carter, U.S. energy consumption declined by 10% between 1979 and 1983. In many ways, he laid the foundation for future presidents to come to grips with climate change. Some thought he was crazy to fight so hard to pass these laws, but he was dead right, and we know that now. We also know that President Carter elevated human rights to the top of his agenda. Sometimes we forget how seriously he pushed to advance the rights of women. He proposed and signed the law extending the period for states to approve the Equal Rights Amendment. He appointed women to head the departments of Commerce, Education, HUD, and what is now HEW. Women on his White House staff played crucial roles in developing his highest priority energy and environmental proposals. And he dramatically increased the ranks of female circuit and district court judges, including Ruth Bader Ginsburg. In all, he appointed 5 times as many women to the federal bench as all of the previous presidents had from the beginning of our country. 2 decades ago, President Carter said he believed income inequality was the biggest global issue. More recently, in a 2018 commencement address at Liberty University, he said, "I think now the largest global issue is the discrimination against women and girls in this world." He concluded that until stubborn attitudes that foster discrimination against women change, the world cannot advance and poverty and income equality cannot be solved. Towards the end of our time in the White House, the President and I were talking about how we might describe what we tried to accomplish in office. We came up with a sentence which remains an important summary of our work. We told the truth. We obeyed the law, and we kept the peace. That we did, Mr. President. I will always be proud and grateful to have had the chance to work with you towards noble ends. It was then and will always be the most rewarding experience of my public career. Thank you.
It was a vow he fulfilled. But his faith respected other religions as well. He was the first president to light a Hanukkah menorah. He created the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum, which I had the honor of chairing. He had a kosher Shabbat dinner at Camp David for the Israeli delegation and came to our house for a Passover Seder, only weeks after he negotiated the treaty between Israel and Egypt. As we lay our 39th president to rest, it's time to redeem his presidency and also lay to rest the myth that his greatest achievements came only as a former president. The test of American presidents is not the number of years they serve, but the duration of their accomplishments. By this measure, Jimmy Carter was among the most consequential one-term presidents in American history. His intellect, prodigious work habits, discipline, and mastery of details were crucial to his success at home and abroad. President Carter parked politics at the Oval Office door to do what he believed was the right thing, taking controversial challenges on, regardless of the political consequences, and frankly, there were many. Much of his agenda passed with bipartisan support, a quaint notion in today's hyper-polarized politics. Independent surveys indicated he had one of the highest success rates in passing his major legislation of any American president. And he was remarkably accessible to the press and to the American people. This president from the deepest part of the Deep South championed civil rights, appointing more people of color and women to senior executive positions and judgeships than all previous 38 presidents before him. He created the Department of Education and dramatically increased funding for low and moderate income students. And we can thank him for all the ethics in government laws, comprehensive civil service reform, the creation of FEMA to coordinate natural disaster relief and rebuilding that remain crucially important today, and we see it in Los Angeles. Jimmy Carter was also the greatest environmental president since Theodore Roosevelt, adding 80 million acres in Alaska to the national park system. And his Global 2000 report forecasts climate change. His energy bills were critical to move our country from dependence on foreign oil to energy security. We are now, as a result, the largest oil and gas producer in the world. He provided the first incentives for conservation and inaugurated the era of the nation under three presidents, two Republican, Nixon and Ford and himself, during the 1970s. Over the objection of all of his advisors, he chose Paul Volcker to lead the Federal Reserve, knowing in advance that Volcker's tough monetary policy would raise interest rates and unemployment because Paul, 13 days and nights, he negotiated with Israel's Menachem Begin and Egypt's Anwar Sadat, personally drafting more than 20 peace proposals and shuttling them between the Israeli and Egyptian delegations. And he saved the agreement at the 11th hour, and it was the 11th hour, by appealing to Begin's love of his grandchildren. For the past 45 years, the Egypt-Israel peace treaty has never been violated and laid the foundation for the Abraham Accords. On the other side of the ledger was Iran. Jimmy Carter did not lose even after his bitter re-election defeat to Ronald Reagan, securing their release on the last day of his presidency. In the end, Jimmy Carter taught all of us how to live a life fulfilled with faith and service. He said, "I have one life to live. I feel like God wants me to do the best I can do with it. So let me live my life so that it will be meaningful." Well, Mr. President, you've more than achieved that goal. He may not be a candidate for Mount Rushmore, but he belongs in the foothills, making the U.S. stronger and the world safer. Jimmy Carter has earned his place in heaven, but just as he was free with sometimes unsolicited advice for his presidential successors, the Lord of all creation should be ready for Jimmy's
In my church, we sing a song that says, "From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God." I don't know how many people in here can say that. I know I can't. But my grandfather certainly can. From the moment that he woke up until he laid his head, his life was a testament to the goodness of God. And I thank all of you for being here to celebrate this life. To the presidents and first ladies, it is a great honor to have you here. You know the human side of the American presidency like no others, and we appreciate you. To the vice presidents, other distinguished guests, and friends of all kinds, thank you for being here. To those of you who came from all across the world, thank you for being here to celebrate and pay tribute to my grandfather. I say grandfather, but we called him Papa, as many of you know. We called my grandmother Mom, so we spent our time talking about Mom and Papa, and mostly, speaking of the human side of the presidency, just letting people know that they were regular folks. Yes, they spent 4 years in the governor's mansion and 4 years at the White House, but the other 92 years they spent at home in Plains, Georgia. And one of the best ways to demonstrate that they were regular folks is to take them by that home. First of all, it looks like they might have built it themselves. Second of all, my grandfather was likely to show up at the door in some 70s short shorts and Crocs. And then you'd walk in the house and it was like thousands of other grandparents' house all across the South. Fishing trophies on the walls. The refrigerator, of course, was papered with pictures of grandchildren and then great-grandchildren. Their main phone, of course, had a cord and was stuck to the wall in the kitchen, like a museum piece. And demonstrating their Depression-era roots, they had a little rack next to the sink where they would hang Ziploc bags to dry. And demonstrating that they changed with the times. Eventually he did get a cell phone, and one time he called me sort of early on in that process, and on my phone it said Papa Mobile. So I answered it, of course. I said, "Hey Papa." He said, "Who's this?" I said, "This is Jason." He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm not doing anything, you called me." He said, "I didn't call you, I'm taking a picture." Nuclear engineer, right? I mean, they were small town people who never forgot who they were and where they were from, no matter what happened in their lives. But I recognize that we are not here because he was just a tools for expanded renewable sources. And by the way, he cut the deficit, wanted to decriminalize marijuana, deregulated so many industries that he gave us cheap flights and, as you heard, craft beer. Basically, all of those years ago, he was the first millennium. And he could make great playlists, as we've heard as well. When we finished, he celebrated the majesty of everything from the smallest minnow to that grand circulation of waters. And he shared this love with my boys, taking these Atlanta.
The life Jimmy Carter lived during his 100 years. To young people, to anyone in search of meaning and purpose, study the power of Jimmy Carter's example. I miss him, but I take solace in knowing that he and his beloved Rosalind are reunited again. To the entire Carter family, thank you, and I mean this sincerely, for sharing them both
in the civil rights movement. So much so that Martin Luther King said that the sheriff of Plains of Sumter County, he really thought was the meanest man in the world. And when I first met Jimmy Carter running for governor, and said, the only thing I know about Plains and Sumter County is Fred Chapel. And he said, oh yes, he's one of my good friends. And that was the last thing I wanted to hear. And yet time and time again, I saw in him the ability to achieve greatness by the diversity of his personality and his upbringing. Dr. King used to say that greatness is characterized by antitheses strongly marked. You've got to have a tough mind and a tender heart. And that was Jimmy Carter. And he grew up in the tremendous diversity of the South, and he embraced both sides. He was a minority in Sumter County. Just about 20-25% of the population was white. But growing up as a minority, he became the friend of the majority. And when he went to the Naval Academy, he asked that his roommate be the first black midshipman to come to Annapolis. And he said, I know minorities. I've been a minority most of my life, and maybe I can help him in his adjustments. And he went out of his way to embrace those of us who had grown up in all kinds of conflict. But that was the sensitivity, the spirituality that made James Earl Carter a truly great president. James Earl Carter was truly a child of God, not only a good farmer, but a nuclear physicist chosen by Admiral Rickover to assist him in developing a nuclear navy. But at the same time he was working on a nuclear navy, he was thinking of peace on earth and goodwill toward all men, and especially women and children. I've known President Carter for more than half of my life, and I never cease to be surprised. I never cease to be enlightened. I never cease to be inspired by the little deeds of love and mercy that he shared with us every day of his life. It was President James Earl Carter that for me symbolized the greatness of the United States of America. And I am truly grateful for him, because in spite of the harshness of the Depression and the explosions of inflation, he never wavered from his commitment to God Almighty and his love of all of God's children. Jimmy Carter was a blessing that helped to create a great United States of America. And for all of us, and many who are not able to be here,
imagine there's no country. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for. No religion to. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will be as one. Imagine no possession. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one.
Our Father, who art in heaven,
Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive.
into your hands, O merciful Savior, we commend your servant James. Acknowledge, we humbly beseech you, a sheep of your own fold, a lamb of your own flock, a sinner of your own redeeming, receive him into the arms of your mercy, into the blessed rest of everlasting peace, and into the glorious company of the saints in light.
Amen.
The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace.
Let us go forth in the name of Christ.
Thanks be to God.
emotional event occur in your lives. I speak from personal experience. I know what it is to lose a home, and I know for me, and I'm sure for you, it's going to be a very difficult process you're going to go through. It's an emotional one, and I understand, as all the others do here behind me, that you have every right to want to get back to your property, every right to, and it's understandable you want to get there, and we we are here standing ready to get you back in those properties. For the communities of Altadena, LA County Public Works will be establishing a public works site within the community, an actual office. We'll start with a mobile office, and then we'll start with a permanent office. It will become a public works district office. We will be issuing building permits, encroachment permits, and we will be coordinating utility companies within the community. We will be also involved with contractors and making sure contractors are following the rules and laws as they perform the work to restore the community. So you will see a big public works presence throughout the Altadena community beginning this weekend and in full force come Monday. I want to thank our utility companies that are here, that are working with us in coordination. That includes Southern California Edison, Southern California Gas. They have asked for and gained permission to your properties to cut off, to take hazardous lines from the ground, and also to cut off the gas so you don't see those flares happening any longer. So we would ask that you be patient with the utility companies. We know they're there, they've gone there with our permission, and they are doing the work of restoring your community to a safe place to build. On the rebuild, you will be getting in LA County territory expedited plan check. We will be considering a reduction in fees, and we will start that process as soon as you are ready to submit. So that is already in place, and I want to just say that under the leadership of Supervisor Barger, of course, she's made this whole area a major priority, and all of the departments of Los Angeles County are ready to stand up this area back up and restore you stronger than you were before, even better the way we left. So again, my heart goes to all of you, and I'm ready to answer questions at the Q&A period. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that. A couple of questions came up that are FEMA related as well as donations related. So in a minute, I'm going to bring up our Board of Supervisor, Catherine Barger, to answer that. But I want to clarify, I answered one of the questions regarding the DINS team. DINS is our disaster assessment teams that are coming out, so that's what DINS represents. So now I'm going to ask for Catherine Barger to come up and talk about the FEMA and some donations.
Thank you. People are asking about a clarification on what I said about the FEMA claims. Yes, you will get the denial because you have insurance, and it says, should you reapply or mark that you don't have insurance? And what I'm told is that you should reapply. And again, working with FEMA, we're going to have an update on this, and tomorrow at our briefing, I will provide as much information as I get in real time. But make no mistake, I'm working on it, but you should reapply. And then we're getting questions regarding donations. And what I would ask is, please do not come and drop water off, even though I know it's out of the goodness of your heart. If you want to give financially, you can give to reputable organizations like the Red Cross, but you can also visit laworks.com/2025fires. Again, laworks.com/2025 and
Orders and warnings, we're to convert some of the orders to a warning and warnings that be cleared. So brief update on that is basically everybody above Highland to Grandview remains in evacuation warning. Everybody from Grandview North will remain in an evacuation order. Everybody from Highland Avenue to Orange Grove Avenue is now clear. So residents and businesses are free to go back should they choose to check on their homes, check on their businesses, even operate a business if they so choose. Be aware the air quality, as we've heard already, is not ideal, so take that into consideration. We also may not have power when you return. Take that into consideration as well. Looking through some of the questions as they were pulling up, I know we do have some of the questions, especially our canyons. Those that live in Sierra Madre know how precious those are. Do not have exact totals, but we do have loss in Sierra Madre. We are currently looking at that and assessing it. We will hopefully have some estimated numbers very soon. However, our canyons are there. We may not have every home still there, but the canyons are still intact. The town looks great. I want to thank our community for listening when we did the evacuation orders. I want to thank all of our city partners We're very blessed. If we look at our neighbors to the left or to the west of us, we're blessed compared to them. So keep them in your prayers, and we'll keep you in our prayers. Please turn to our local updates on Facebook Live for more local information. Thank you.
Thank you for that information. Next, I'm going to bring up one of our incident commanders, Kevin Boha, who's going to respond to a couple questions that came up.
Yeah, the first question that we got was how we were going to utilize some resources that we just received from Mexico. So first of all, we appreciate the support. Second, once we find out the skills and abilities of those resources, we'll find tasks that are appropriate and put them to work where applicable within the skills and abilities that they hold. So we have to find that out first, but we absolutely appreciate the support and we'll utilize it. The second one is, what is the plan for when the rains come? Is there a plan for mudslides? So obviously in this area, one of the things that does happen is you get large amounts of rain in a short period of time. You can have debris flows. We've seen like Montecito, things like that in the past. So what we do is we bring in a watershed emergency response team, which has already been ordered. I've already made that contact. And they come out and they do an assessment of the burned area. So what they do is they look at soil type, burn severity, things like that, and they assess what sort of debris flows we're gonna have if we get a certain amount of water coming off of the mountain at a certain time. Once they get that assessment, we give it to the local EOC, and they work through together and they come up with what the mitigations are going to be so that we don't have any damage to the values at risk again, or the values impacted after we get those rainfalls in the event that we get those rainfalls that could cause debris flows. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Next, I'm going to bring back up Captain Williams with LA County Sheriffs to respond to some of your questions that you had.
I just wanted to answer a few questions. I understand there was a question about whether or not they're letting people into the evacuation areas, even if they have ID and can prove that they're residents of of Altadena. At this point, it's still, even if you have ID and can prove it, we are not letting people into the area, and several reasons for that. It's still not considered safe. There's debris in the road. There's still active fires in certain spots, certain places. There's wires down throughout the streets, and as they provide maintenance on these wires, they could become electrified. You know, and we don't want anyone to get hurt. As of right now, our main priority is the safety of the public. I understand this is some trying times. And at the Sheriff's Department, we really feel for everyone that's dealing with this situation. But our utmost priority right now is public safety and keeping people out of what's considered a danger zone is important for us. There was also a question about the curfew. There is a mandatory curfew in place. It's going to begin 6 p.m. today. And it's going to be 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. every day. We have this in place for enhancing public safety, to protect structures, and also to prevent looting and burglaries. The less people we have in an area, the better we are to protect it. There are some repercussions. If you are caught, you will be arrested, you will be hard booked, and you are subject to a $1,000 fine or jail time. So I just want to reiterate, there will be a mandatory curfew in place starting 6 p.m. tonight, going through 6 a.m. every day, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. There was a question about will we have continued support from our law enforcement, and the answer to that is yes. That includes the National Guard. They are actively in place now, and they are helping to protect assets and to help with road closures.
Filtration systems in the smaller water systems, and specifically the districts that are serving Altadena. Thank goodness for Pasadena Water and Power. They have been sharing across and intertie to these small areas and have kept the water flowing throughout the event, both for fire suppression as well as for domestic use. Again, the drinking water, and we re-emphasize it again, the drinking water is not something we recommend you drink. And in fact, we've been given orders by the state not to have people drink the water at this time. Someone has had a question. It's the inevitable question, when can we get back and when will the debris be removed? The County of Los Angeles intends to enroll in the state program for debris removal. We will be seeking state support for the debris removal. That program involves utilizing homeowners' property insurance, a portion of it that is designated for debris removal, and bringing that, submitting that forward to create a collective contract with the state, in which the state then brings in vendors, and those vendors properly clean the debris. And when I say properly, we first go in and actually analyze the soil to make sure that it's not toxic. We remove any toxic materials, and then the state will come with their contractors and remove and bring the site to, clean the site to a point that it's ready for reconstruction. It's a good program, and it's one that the county's proud to work with the cities that have been impacted across Southern California to prepare to remove the massive amount of debris that has to be disposed of properly. So that's the first step in our process of recovery for you. You will hear more about this in the coming weeks, where to sign up, how to sign up, and also the timing of it as we put this program together. Unfortunately, LA County has gotten pretty good at this because we've been the fiduciary and the coordinator of this program for 3 different fires so far, significant fires so far. So we're pretty good at it. And I think you're going to find that this is going to give you some relief to know that your site's going to be cleaned up and free of toxics and ready for reconstruction in a very short period of time. That's what I have on debris removal at this time. Thank you.
Thank you guys for that information. I'm going to bring back up Captain Williams again, who has some clarifications that he'd like to get out.
Hi again. I just want to clarify some things regarding the mandatory curfew in place. The jurisdiction is going to be anything that's considered an order evacuation area. Now, I know some people may be trying to figure out how you can find out if you are in a mandatory evacuation area. The best way of doing it is going on protectgenesis.com. That's protectgenesis.com. I'll spell it out. Protect, P-R-O-T-E-C-T. Genesis is spelled G-E-N-A-S-Y-S.com. Yes, protect, P-R-O-T-E-C-T. Genesis, G-E-N-A-S-Y-S.com. Just check that. You can type in your address, and it lets you know if your residence or business is in that mandatory evacuation zone. Again, that curfew is only in place for those that are within that evacuation zone. I know there are power outages throughout Altadena in the certain areas. We are ramping up extra patrols due to that. So we are out. Curfew, sorry, been a long day. Anybody violating that mandatory curfew is subject to arrest with a $1,000 fine and or jail time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, there's been some inquiries in regards to Altadena. I'm going to bring up Victoria Knapp, who's with the Town Council, to address them.
Hi again. I just wanted to communicate that we're seeing online that Altadena feels very ignored. That is not the case. The problem we have in Altadena, as most Altadenans know, is there is no central communication department. So every person that's in this building and in this room right now is here to help Altadena. It just takes us some time to coordinate all of the efforts, and because we're so to find a way to get the information to you. So please know that this town council is working with everyone that's in this room and beyond to make sure that Altadena is connected to the resources it needs to be able to begin to heal. I just want to make it clear that I lost my home, and I know how you're feeling, and I feel disconnected, as connected as I am. but we are going to get you the information. Please follow us on the altadena-town-council.org website, where we will list the information for the gathering that we are trying to plan once we find a place. Thank you.
So that's going to conclude our meeting tonight with question and answers. I just want to go through some important.
You're going to have the LA County update. You're going to have the LA County update on, I guess, well, it'll be on the Palisades fire, but I think the LA County fires in general. So let me actually just get that on the screen, or let me just get the headline updated to say that. If you give me 1 second here, I will say, soon on LA area fires, 5:30 PT.
Pacific time.
They'll say LA County. Okay, so we'll have that for you. Mayor Karen Bass, I assume, will be there. We're going to talk about some of the issues, some of the controversies that have been discussed. You know, there's been discussion about, like, why did the hydrants stop working in certain places? There was a reservoir in Palisades that reportedly was not in working order. It was getting repaired, I believe. Questions about, there's been this debate about whether the fire department budget was cut and whether the fire department budget had a significant impact on the firefighting in these fires, which I know a lot of you are familiar with these debates. So I'm not going to start weighing in on those myself. I don't think I have a very adequate background or research done on this situation to start pontificating on that. But we'll talk about some of those debates going on, and also I'm guessing that you will maybe hear some stuff about that in the press conference. I am aware that there was an interview that I saw today. Some viewers actually messaged me about it. I had seen discussion of it online, where, let me make sure I get this right. It was, let me just get the person's name right. Yeah, the LA, Kristen Crowley gave an interview. She might have given more than one interview today, where she said, she's actually given on local Fox News.
Rebuilding phase. It will be a huge issue. What is covered, who is covered, what causes are covered. These issues will be litigated for many years to come. And there are a lot of people in one of the fire zones, at least one of the fire zones, who were dropped by their insurance carriers very recently as a result of them thinking there could be fires. So there will be a lot of people who were uninsured and lost everything that they have. And there will be litigation pertaining to both the cause of the fires and the insurance claims for many, many years to come.
Oh, it's absolutely horrific. I want to get your thoughts, though, on other news now. Donald Trump's hush money case, of course. It's been very interesting, to say the least. Can you just talk us through the latest proceedings and, I guess, what this means now?
So Donald Trump was sentenced. He was...
In spite of earthquakes, famines, diseases, fires, that does not negate or qualify the reality of God's character and nature, that he is good.
With no containment in sight, Pastor Beach at Zoe Church says his first priority is to grieve with his community.
I don't want to just bypass that moment and throw a scripture on it. You know, of course, we're ambassadors of hope. We are representatives of God's love. And I think we're just trying to navigate that as sensitively and as appropriately as possible. You know, in sensitivity to a lot of people that are fearful and have lost their homes right now.
Sitting roughly 5 miles from the flames, Zoe's church building, which opened its doors in September, is safe for now. They're working with emergency teams like the LA Dream Center, led by Pastor Matthew Barnett, collecting emergency supplies to help those who've lost everything.
Pray that these fires are contained, because at this point there's zero containment. So we need some divine intervention here, and I think we can do what we all do best as Christians, pray for God's intervention.
Pastor Greg Laurie of Harvest Church has also set up a donation fund through his website while sharing his faith that the power of prayer still works.
We're just praying, Lord. You think of that time where Jesus looked at the storm on the Sea of Galilee and said, "Peace, be still." We need the winds to stop. It would even be a little better if the rain came too.
CBN's Operation Blessing is gearing up to respond, connecting with local ministries to plan and coordinate relief for the victims. Jimmy Carter, CBN News.
Coming up, amid the ongoing pressure in Israel to see the hostages released, sad news as the body of a hostage thought to be alive was found this week. We're going to bring you the story from Jerusalem. We got the story for you when we come back. You're watching CBN News Watch.
See a brand new way to start.
Lanyon Cannon Road, Hillside Avenue. Yep. Westminster Street, Carson, Hollywood Boulevard, Hollywood Boulevard. Northwest, North Carson, wildfire, bushfire. Scorches, fire blaze. Apache. Wisconsin, Neverland, Carson Place, Carson Terrace. Topanga Canyon Civic Center Way, Pacific Coast Highway, Hollywood, California.
And if we pull out all the way, so we can just put this into a frame of reference. It's just south of Mulholland Drive, and if we come all the way out, you can see due north of Bonita Avenue and Vista Street. The call, they have been dispatched out here, and that's Fire 3. That helicopter flying right to the shot right there, that's Fire 3. Is just the most ominous thing I think of at this moment. I fear that this thing is going to grow and head, at least
Fire.
Orange County as well, because this whole area is impacted by the winds.
Actually, a large part of SoCal is under an air quality alert, not because of this fire. This fire is bringing new problems, of course, especially if you've got any respiratory issue. You want to stay indoors. But the air quality alert was in place because of the blowing dust. And not only that, there's a mandatory firewood burning ban at the moment, because that would add, obviously, toxic particulate matter into the atmosphere. So you want to remember the air quality alert that is also in place.
Yeah, it makes sense to try to stay indoors if you can during this. I mean, why
why create a situation that doesn't need to happen,
Well,
right?
as you saw earlier, we saw people actually walking around sort of the perimeter of the fire and looking and watching. Not a good idea to be doing that, taking pictures and video, which, you know, in the media, we get out of the way of officials and firefighters trying to save structures here with this fire.
Yeah, don't let curiosity get the blue and create congestion or a problem for people who are really trying to answer the call. And then if you're not in this area and you're worried about a health condition, oh, you're looking at some people on foot right there getting out of the area. And look, kids wearing masks because of the fact that the air quality is so bad. And if you do have a condition like asthma or respiratory issues, people getting over being sick, a lot of people getting sick over the holidays and still having trouble with a cough or something, this is going to aggravate things even more.
So they're walking down, I'm assuming this is Temescal. I just saw on radio traffic here that the fire is now impacting parts of Sunset Boulevard. This is near Palisades Drive, and that the road is impassable, but we're getting word that the fire is now impacting parts of Sunset near Palisades Drive. And I'm assuming these people walking away from that area, which is close to this live shot, I think, that we're showing here right now.
I wonder from our crews on the ground if they can get a sense of if any structures have been damaged or if they can see any damage from where they are. I know it's a fluid situation as you're seeing our photographer change his position right there, but it's hard to tell at this point from our vantage point or from the pictures that we're getting in, if in fact some structures have been damaged from their locations. We do know that there has been damage, we just don't know where. And we haven't physically seen it, right?
Right, we haven't seen any burnt homes,
yeah.
Just heard reports. Trying to see if there's an update regarding any evacuations. By the way, the Watch Duty app, or if you go online, just do Watch Duty, you can get up to the minute information regarding acreage that's burned or evacuations or just any kind of useful information there. Yes, Maria just read you the latest update that the fire has impacted Sunset Boulevard near Palisades Drive, and you can't use this road at this point. So that is going to be a big problem. I think we're going to see more people walking, right? Just their best bet is to walk out of there if possible versus trying to drive. PCH is moving very slowly. It's like a snail's pace here, but at least we're seeing traffic slowly moving along. This was Will Rogers State Beach, the parking lot there where they were going to have a command post set up, but it looks like they are changing their plans. That's why this parking lot is so empty at this point. My gosh, that sky, Maria, it's just getting darker and darker.
Yeah, we had a while the smoke of LAX, and it was clear how the smoke was going from the northeast towards the southwest, toward the ocean, and that is a clear indication of this extreme Santa Ana wind. Do not encourage you to go back and try to get your animals, but I know they're like a family member, right? It's tough. It's tough.
We were just getting some information from our director that we have an image of a home on fire. Sadly, if we can get that image and show,
there's a live look.
We've been talking about that there were reports of homes on fire and we hadn't yet seen it, and unfortunately, there it is. Do we have a locator here? Do we know where?
Can you hear me right?
Oh, Matthew Seedorf is here.
Can you hear us all right?
Yes, we can.
So we're off of Shadow Mountain Drive. We've been watching the flames quickly take over this home, and the winds are blowing to our right now, about 15 miles an hour is what I've been measuring, but it's really sad to see. We've been hearing these loud pops, and possibly more structures down the hill go up in flames very quickly as it spreads. A lot of residents out here have been asking us, pulling over as they evacuate, wondering where are the firefighters? We don't see any firefighters where we are. We understand that traffic in the area is a mess, but it's super tragic to see a home like this get engulfed in these flames.
So there are no firefighters where you are. Are you seeing any of the super scoopers or water dropping helicopters up above? What are you seeing exactly?
We're not seeing any firefighters or any drops from the sky. But if you look over here, there's looks like another home in flames behind this gate. Just a lot of people looks like evacuated very quickly. It's dead up here. But again, no firefighters that we've been able to see. And the people that we have talked to are wondering where they are as we continue to see the flames push further and further down this hill.
How hard was it for you to come up to this neighborhood?
The traffic in the area is pretty bad, so we had to do some maneuvering. Even the cell reception right now is not great. That's why we're actually using it's a massive area logistically to get out here, and you can see it feel the wind out. As it's firing, you can tell.
Hey Matt, what's that main road that you're standing at right there? Is that Saddle
Mountain Drive?
Saddle Mountain Drive. Okay. Shadow. Thank you.
Shadow Mountain, yeah.
Well, it's difficult. I know it's heartbreaking for residents who say, where are all the firefighters? You know, why aren't there any personnel here? It's just so expansive at this point, and it quickly spread. And then the fact that they're dealing with all of these people trying to get out of the area or get into the area, the traffic, as you even reported, Matthew, and showed us, it's just a nightmare to try to get in and out of that area and that region, and then trying to, allocate the resources accordingly. Obviously, the first priority for first responders is to protect life and property. And it is heartbreaking to see people's livelihoods, their homes go up in flames, but we are seeing firsthand how these first responders are working so hard to try to put this out. And clearly it's just the combination of the terrain plus the winds, as you're seeing right there, and you're feeling it, Matthew, right? The winds really whipping around.
Yeah, you can feel the wind and the extreme heat coming up with fire. It looks like they have some sort of sprinkler system set up in the lawn here, but it doesn't appear to be working. They're trying to get pushing further and further down the hill right now towards Shadow Mountain Drive.
So Shadow Mountain, and what's the nearest cross street?
Bienvenido. Shadow Mountain, Bienvenido.
Okay, so you're up at the Ridgeview Country Estates. You're kind of like in between the village and the Palisades and the summit that's way, way, way at the top there. But you're really close to the canyons, but there's a lot of homes up there, Matt, and it's just so devastating to see this one in particular, this structure and this fire. Are you seeing any other people at all up there on your way up, or do you think that a lot of them were able to get out?
When we got to the main road up of Bienvenido,
แจกส่วนลดที่พักสูงสุด 20% ต้อนรับปี 2568 จัดทริปแรกของปีกับ Agoda เลย
It got noticeably quiet as we got closer to the fire. A lot of the residents had pushed out. But again, it seems like the firefighters might be having a tough time getting out here. We know that the fire is expanding very quickly. But the couple residents that we have seen up on this street, particular Shadow Mountain Drive, were the ones that are kind of wondering what's going on. Where's the help? It does feel like that a lot of people in this area left very quickly. And as you mentioned, it is a very residential area. There's a lot of homes burning right now.
Such an eerie, I feel as though, I'm not there, but watching you, such an eerie kind of feeling where you are.
Yeah, definitely a very eerie feeling. You can feel the ash getting pushed out by the fire and the heat as we're kind of bouncing up a little bit. But really, yeah, we're just the only ones up here. And we actually tried calling the fire department ourselves, tried calling 911, but the cell reception is so bad. The only way that we're able to talk to you right now is through Wi-Fi.
Oh. That explains.
That's another challenge we've been talking about. Yeah, the connectivity in that area, just even without a fire and the wind, it's so spotty depending on where you are. And you can imagine for the residents there looking to
get information.
Yeah, contact loved ones, figure out what to do, call for emergency help. It's so tough. They can't get out. They can't get the service that they need.
Yeah, it's a tough situation, and the people that we've been able to talk to very briefly, you can tell that they're in shock. They're going through all the emotions right now as their neighborhoods, being impacted by this fire in particular, and it's blowing this direction. Again, we've been talking about these winds, and we might need to scoot closer to the Wi-Fi here, but I've been measuring the winds with our odometer, and it's about 50 miles an hour pretty consistently, but we've seen gusts over 20 miles an hour. Also, obviously pushing this fire, making it grow even more.
Yeah, there's a school nearby. I'm assuming that they evacuated St. Matthew's. It's a known school there up in the Palisades and in the parish. I'm not sure if you drove past it on your way up there, Matthew, but just in case, if you saw any kids or any people at all down there.
Yeah, it looks like they were being evacuated. We did drive past on the way over. The traffic in that area has been so bad. We saw parents walking their kids. We saw school buses and everything. It appeared like everything was happening very quickly. Obviously, no one had any sort of warning that this fire was going to start today. They were all going about their day, and then it was all pushed very quickly. Do everything you can, get your kids and get out.
Just feel for those families and those parents, and yeah, they all got out.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of residents on foot, Matthew, even getting away from that area, and even first responders with their goggles and their face masks, really trying to protect themselves from the conditions up there. It looks terrible in terms of the pollutants in the air and just the air quality you must be dealing with, Matt.
Yeah, the air quality is not good. As you can see, we're wearing our mask right now, and just the wind, the smoke, the fire, you can feel the heat if you're really close. And I mean, you can tell we've been walking in the street for the last 10 minutes or so, and there's no one here. There's no firefighters. And again, we tried calling, but so far, haven't gotten a response. The cell reception's so poor. We're going to actually change locations right now. Let's see if we can.
Okay, we'll let you get back to it, Matt and Matthew, as we wait for him to change the locations. Let's take a look at the map and the areas he's talking about, because we are looking at the red right there. That's the evacuation orders that are in effect right now. So if it's red, means you leave now. So anyone living in those red areas, leave now if you haven't left already. The yellow areas, that's where an evacuation warning is in effect. It's in place right now. That means be ready to leave, right? Have your foot out the door. Leave if you can. Do the right thing, get out early.
The problem is, where are they going to go? So PCH is pretty much gridlocked at the moment, but it is away from the fire, so that's a good thing. So I guess they could go north.
North?
Yeah, they could go north.
Up and around, get into the valley maybe, go to Oxnard area. It is a tough situation, but you got to think on your feet and then be ready to go and do what's best for you and your family and for the surrounding community, just so you're not a problem. Because you don't want to add to being the problem here, because it's tough as it is for people who are watching this and realizing that these flames are impacting so many people's homes and livelihoods. Look at how close to the property line.
Yeah,
Right
we
there.
were just
So
we just switched cameras there, but that was Matthew, and he was telling us how they have no cell service, so they were using Wi-Fi, right? Matthew and our photographer Armando. Oh, this is Armando. Okay, this is Armando's camera. Okay, so there we have, yes, the flames so close to that home right there. Man, it's tough to watch this, right?
It is. He was up there at Shadow Mountain Drive, and he was Bienvenida. He was saying how it was pretty much empty of people. However, there were no firefighters, and the fire was getting really close to where he was. But as you said, Sandra, they're getting called to where the danger is at its highest at the moment, and so you can't expect them to be there. But I'm glad they evacuated. That's exactly the right thing to do. so that firefighters can go to where they're most needed at the moment, where that fire is really critical to life first and then property.
And it looked like that homeowner did take all the precautions. They had the fire clearance. With a lot of people living in that area, they're known to have fire threats and prone to these warnings over the years. And they've done their best. They've listened to fire officials. If you live in an area where you are in those fire-prone areas, that you must
the
have
canyons,
the clearance right around the homes,
the mountains.
and that house, even Matthew was mentioning, had like a water sprinkling system in place on the ground. It wasn't working, which is the other thing, but to take precautions like that, especially if you live in an area where you know it might be a situation like this, and then
This is something that doesn't happen very often. And I think it was Captain Eric Scott that told us that it was 2011 was the last time that he saw conditions like this develop so quickly in terms of the danger.
We do have Haley Winslow on the scene out there talking to residents and getting new video as to what's happening. Let's go back to her and what the situation's like out there, Haley.
It's crazy. It's very crazy to say the least. And we're actually trying to figure out where the command post is. It keeps changing, so we can get you the latest information. There were about 5 fire trucks that just flew out of here being deployed. So this is, I guess, kind of a makeshift staging area. I did just get the latest 911 call talking about the homes on Shadow Mountain Drive, where Matthew Seedorf is, that are threatened, about a dozen of them. I'm just going to play it for you real quick. I was just trying to do that real quick while you came to me. So, cars are on fire a lot more than the one we showed you earlier, and people are literally just ditching their cars, like just leaving them in the middle of the road, and firefighters are going into the burning cars trying to pull people out. I'm not sure exactly which road that is on. The one we showed you earlier when we introduced you to the guy on the electric bike, Zen, that was on Palisades Drive, right off of Sunset. Just right, if you know the area, right past the Starbucks. He said that's where the palm trees were on fire as well. I'm not sure if that's where these other cars were, but the alert said that there were about a dozen cars on fire and firefighters pulling people out. That's the latest here. We're going to try to find the post so that we can bring you the most official information. But just another live look at the sky. And obviously the winds, right before you guys came to me, nearly knocked me off my feet. Easily 35-mile-per-hour gusts here in the last hour or so. And as Maria's been saying, it's far from the worst of it. Here, just in the Palisades, I saw 70-mile-per-hour gusts are expected overnight tonight and tomorrow. And then, of course, like in the mountains, 80 to 100-mile-per-hour gusts. So this is definitely no joke. And Maria would know more, but it looks like from the last I saw, it looks like it was on par to be the worst Santa Ana's of the season.
Well, you can see a chaotic scene. We're looking at video, Haley, thank you, of some residents on foot and the dramatic change in the sky. Also, just debris flying, you know, maybe a plastic bag in the air, but it just shows you how those wind gusts can really pick up debris and trash and litter and embers. Embers, of course.
That's why those cars are on fire.
Cars are on fire.
Cars trying to make their way out.
The palm fronds, we were getting reports of some of the treetops are on fire. And it just speaks to how strong these winds are and the damage it can do and how erratic it can be and how prepared we need to be, I guess, as much as we can.
It's always a good sign when you see some white smoke, let me tell you, right? It's a bit of a relief in for the moment.
For the moment, we are seeing a little bit of that, so that's encouraging.
But you know, one of the residents we were speaking with was saying how it's confusing and there's conflicting information, and you know, 1 minute the wind blows this way, the next minute it blows the other way, so they don't quite know.
Yeah, but that speaks to the nature of fire. There is